y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Deandra Levon if you are new here, and if you're not new here, then welcome back to the clique. So for this video, we are just continuing on with our personality disorders series, and this third and final part is going to be on cluster C, which includes the anxious and fearful personality disorders. And as always, make sure you have a pen and paper or grab your phone so that you can take notes throughout this video. Alright, so the first disorder that we are going to discuss is the avoidant personality disorder. And the DSM defines this disorder as a pervasive pattern of social inhibition, feelings of inadequacy, and hypersensitivity to negative evaluation beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. And in order to get this diagnosis, they must have 4 of the following criteria. Number 1. These individuals avoid work activities that involve significant contact with others due to fears of criticism, disapproval, or rejection. So these people might turn down jobs or turn down job promotions simply because they feel like this job promotion is going to come with more responsibility, which will in turn bring on added criticism from their coworkers. And they just don't want that, so they'll just completely turn it down altogether. Number 2. They avoid making new friends unless they are absolutely positive that the person will like them and accept them without criticism. So if they meet a new person, they're going to make them jump through all types of hoops and pass all types of tests to make sure that this person really actually likes them and they're not going to criticize them. It just comes from that fear of rejection and criticism. So if there's a group of people and they're like, hey, come on, let's go hang out somewhere, they're probably not going to go unless they have a lot of reassurance and a lot of coaxing from the other individuals for them to actually go. Otherwise, they're not going to go anywhere. They have to really feel wanted by the group. Number 3, interpersonal intimacy is difficult because they constantly fear that the person will shame or ridicule them. So they're not going to be very vulnerable or express their feelings because they're afraid that the other person is going to laugh at them about it or that they're going to use it against them at a later time. So typically in relationships, they're very guarded and not very open with how they feel. Number 4. These individuals are preoccupied with being criticized or rejected in social settings. So again, this goes back to that fear of rejection and criticism. Even if a person is slightly critical of them, they really take it to heart and it's going to hurt their feelings a lot because they just don't want to be criticized at all. So these individuals are very shy and timid. They're kind of invisible within the crowd, and this is on purpose. They make themselves invisible because they don't want to do or say anything that could potentially be embarrassing for them. So they would rather just not say anything at all versus accidentally saying something wrong that's going to make them embarrassed. And honestly, they pretty much think everything that they say or do is wrong. Number 5. These individuals are inhibited in new interpersonal situations because they feel like they're not good enough and they have low self-esteem. And this especially shows up when they're interacting with strangers or just people that they're not very close to. They're very self-conscious about it and they'll probably just avoid interacting with people that they don't know altogether. Number 6. They naturally think they are socially awkward and inferior to others, which keeps them from trying to make friends or even talk to others. So they tend to overanalyze every conversation that they have with the person. So they'll go back and replay that conversation over and over in their minds, thinking oh man, I should not have said that. Oh, that was so embarrassing. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? They're just very self-conscious about those interactions with others. And it keeps them from making new friends or even trying to make new friends. Number 7. They are usually reluctant to try new things or take risks because they may embarrass themselves. So they are going to basically not step out of their comfort zone at all, even if it's something as small as wearing a color that they don't typically wear. They'll say, oh, well, I can't pull off that color. I'll look crazy. And you're like, no, you're not. You'll look fine. But in their mind, the possible outcome is always the worst possible outcome ever, and they tend to over exaggerate what could potentially happen if they do something different. And this leads to them having very restricted lives. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because if they're in a situation where it is an opportunity for them to do something new or to meet new people, and they decide not to do it because of that fear of rejection and embarrassment, they're probably gonna just be cooped up in the house all the time. And that is a very restricted way of living. Even if they eventually agree to go somewhere new, they're likely going to cancel on you at the last minute because, again, that fear of embarrassment is just too strong for them to overcome at the moment. Alright, so the second personality disorder is the dependent personality disorder. And the DSM defines this disorder as a pervasive and excessive need to be taken care of that leads to submissive and clinging behavior and fears of separation, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. And to be diagnosed, they have to have 5 or more of the following. So, number 1. They struggle to make everyday decisions without a lot of assurance and advice from others. So it could be, what outfit should I wear today? Or should I cook dinner or pick up dinner? These everyday decisions that we make every single day, they struggle to make them on their own. They have to constantly be reassured from others that what they're deciding on is correct. Number 2. They need others to take responsibility in most areas of their life. So these people are very passive, and they depend a lot on their family members or their spouse to make all their decisions. And it could be decisions about where should I live or what job should I get. Any decision in their life, even if it's a major decision, they want somebody else to make that decision for them. And in adolescence, this typically shows up with their parents. So they'll rely on their parents to decide what college they're gonna go to or which friends they should have. They kind of just let their parents control everything about their lives. Number 3. These individuals have difficulty expressing disagreement with others because of fear of loss of support or approval. So for the most part, they are just not going to disagree with people, especially people that they rely on or depend on. It could be something that they are completely against or completely don't want to do, but they're not going to disagree with it because they have a fear that if they do disagree, that person that they depend on so much is going to abandon them. If that person does something bad to them and they should be upset about it or mad about it, they're probably not going to be upset because, again, they don't want to be disapproving of that person. They want to make sure that that person feels like they are still in their corner at all times. Number 4. They have difficulty initiating projects or doing things independently. And a lot of times this is just because they lack self-confidence and they don't think that they can actually do things on their own. So they're not going to start the task, they're not going to complete the task. They kind of need somebody to hold their hand through it all the way through. They'll literally see something that needs to be done that they could probably do, but they're not going to do it unless somebody else is doing it with them or kind of pushing them to do it. They truly feel that they are unable to function independently and they're going to rely on others a lot. Now, if they're being supervised through the entire task, then they'll probably do it. But as soon as they feel like they're not being watched or feel like the person has left them, they're not going to complete whatever it is that they're working on. And I would say that they often display learned helplessness, where they essentially won't even attempt to learn new skills because they want to still be dependent on that other person. And they feel like, well, if I get too good at things, that other person might feel like I don't need them anymore. And so therefore they'll leave me. So I'm just going to never learn how to do anything at all. Number 5, they go to extreme lengths to get support or help from others, even to the point that they'll volunteer to do embarrassing tasks if it'll bring the support they need. So even if the request from the other person is completely embarrassing or unreasonable, they're still going to do it because in their mind, they have to do what this person wants them to do because this is all they have and they depend on that person. They absolutely have to maintain that bond, and this tends to lead to unbalanced and distorted relationships. The relationships are very one-sided, where one person is just doing whatever they want and the other person goes along with whatever that person is doing. The individual with dependent personality disorder is going to tolerate a lot of things that they should not tolerate, such as emotional, sexual, physical abuse, solely to hold on to that person that they depend on. Number 6, these individuals feel uncomfortable or helpless when they are alone due to exaggerated fears of not being able to take care of themselves. So these people are going to tag along. They are going to latch on to people regardless because they do not want to be alone at any point. Even if they're not even interested in the activity that the person is doing, they're going to still do it because in their mind, they have to be with that person no matter what. Number 7, these individuals will quickly look for another relationship for support when one relationship ends. So let's say they're in a relationship and the person breaks up with them, or they have a family member that dies. They're going to quickly find somebody, anybody to latch onto. And that is because the person that they depended on the most is no longer there. And because they feel like they cannot function on their own, they're like, I have to find somebody. It doesn't even matter who it is. I just have to find somebody and latch onto them quickly. And lastly is number 8. They are preoccupied with fears of being left to care for themselves. So they have these excessive and unrealistic fears of being abandoned, even if that person is constantly reassuring them over and over that I'm not going to leave you. They're still going to feel like that person's going to leave them. And this explains why they have such strong attachments to people and they really do latch onto them. It's because they never truly feel reassured or safe. Alright, so the last disorder for this video is obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. So the DSM defines this disorder as a pervasive pattern of preoccupation with orderliness, perfectionism, and mental and interpersonal control at the expense of flexibility, openness, and efficiency, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. And they have to have 4 or more of the following. Number 1, they are preoccupied with details, rules, lists, order, organization, or schedules to the extent that the main point of whatever they're doing is lost. So these are those people that are excessively careful and they pay attention to every little detail. They're constantly going over their work multiple times, checking for any little mistake. And oftentimes this annoys the people around them because it slows them down a lot. But the individual with OCD disorder doesn't even notice. They're completely oblivious to that fact. So for instance, let's say the OCD person made a list of groceries and they lost the list. Instead of them just trying to remember what was on the list and writing another list, they're going to spend an hour looking for that list. You're not going to go to the grocery store until that list is found. So you can see how that can be annoying for their spouse or their family member but they're not going to care because to them, that list has to be found no matter what. And these individuals typically have poor time management in general. They typically will leave their most important task until the very last minute. So number 2, these individuals are so preoccupied with perfection that it causes distress, and they may never complete tasks because of it. So they will spend hours rewriting their assignments, rewriting their papers, waiting until the last minute to work on work that they have to do for their job. And it makes them actually miss their deadlines. And it causes issues with their school, if they're in school, and with their job. And it's because they're just unable to just finish the task and turn it in. They have to continually go back and check it over and over and over again. Number 3. These individuals are excessively devoted to work and productivity, which can lead them to neglect leisure activities or friendships. So they're the people that we call the workaholics. And they'll say things like, oh, I don't have time to take a weekend off. I have work to do. And you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe next time. Ultimately, they just don't know how to relax. Even if you can convince them to go on a vacation with you, they're going to bring some work with them to work on. Like, they're not going to be on a vacation without having work to do because they feel like otherwise, if they're not working on something, then they're just wasting time. If they do engage in hobbies or recreational activities, they're going to take those activities very seriously. So whereas other people are like, oh, we're just doing this for fun, that OCD person is going to be like, oh, we're not doing this for fun. Okay, we got to take this seriously, all right? Like, we're here to master this. And it's just because they don't know how to relax. They may even display this with their own children. Even if the kids are just trying to play and have fun, the OCD parent is going to be very tough on them. And they're going to be like, no, you got to get this right every single time. Number 4, they are over-conscientious, scrupulous, and inflexible about matters of morality, ethics, or values. So they might force themselves and others to follow very strict, rigid moral principles. And they're going to have a very high standard of performance. Like, they're going to expect perfection every single time. And this leads them to be very self-critical about their own mistakes. And they're just very hard on themselves. Every time they make a mistake, it's like the end of the world for them. And they're very rigid about following the rules, obeying the laws, and they make no exceptions for it. Like, no matter what, the rules have to be followed at all times. Even if it's an extenuating circumstance, they're still not going to make any exceptions. Number 5, they may be unable to throw out worn out or worthless items, even if they have no sentimental value. So they're just not going to throw away anything. And even if you're like, why do you still have that? They're going to say something like, hey, you never know when you might need this. Even if you're probably never going to need that again in your life, they're not going to throw it out. And they're going to get upset if you try to throw it out. I don't know if any of you guys have watched that show Hoarders, but they get really, really mad when people try to throw out their things. And their spouses, family members, roommates, they're probably complaining a lot about all this old stuff that's taking up space in the house, but that's not going to faze the OCD person. They're still not going to clean any of that stuff up. Number 6, these individuals are reluctant to delegate tasks or work with others. So they're very stubborn about things being done their way, and they feel like their way is the only way. There's one correct way to do everything, and they expect everyone to follow that way. Even if they do, on the rare chance, delegate a task to somebody else, they're going to leave them detailed instructions about how it needs to be done. They're not going to just let them go off and do it the way they want to do it. No, they have to follow a detailed way of how it has to be done. And if that person does not follow it exactly, the OCD person is going to be upset with them. And because they are so particular, they're probably going to just reject help from others altogether, even if they need it, because they just feel like they're the only ones that can do it right. Number 7, they may be very stingy and live way below their means because they are always thinking about being prepared for the future or being ready for catastrophes. So they could be making all types of money. It's not going to matter. They're going to live like they have a very low income job, and that's because they are not going to be caught slipping. Like, they're going to make sure that they have money in the bank at all times, just in case something happens. So lastly is number 8. This disorder is characterized by rigidity and stubbornness. So they are obsessed with doing everything right and doing things the correct way. And they can't really see others' perspectives or listen to other viewpoints. And they also don't do well with suggestions or any type of advice. They'll make very detailed plans and they're not interested in making any changes or hearing you give them suggestions about making changes. They're not going to listen to that. And because they have such difficulty recognizing the viewpoints of others, this causes a lot of issues in their relationships and their friendships. And you can understand that. Like, if a person never wants to see your side or never wants to hear your perspective, it can be very difficult to stay close to that person. They're the type of people where even if a compromise would be better for the both of you or for the OCD person, they're not going to budge because for them, it's the principle of the matter. And for the most part, it's going to be their way or the highway. Alright y'all, so that was the last disorder of cluster C and also the last personality disorder period. So we have gone through cluster A, B, and C, and if you missed any of the other 2 videos, make sure that you check out my NCE exam studying playlist so that you can go back and watch it. And let me know down below which topics you want me to cover next. I really want to help all of you pass your NCE exams, and I'm just kind of hitting topics that may show up on your exam and breaking them down in a way that is easy for you guys to understand and remember. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That helps my videos to spread throughout the YouTube algorithm. And also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. And down below I have links to my NCE exam study template as well as my free ebook on how to become a licensed counselor. So make sure you check those out as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye!